Here we go. So we're going to talk a little bit about ringworm. It is something we commonly deal with at the shelter. So we love that everybody wants to be more informed about it. It's great for when you're talking with the public. It's great for your own knowledge, just because it is something that can be transmitted to humans. And it's great because at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about how we're expanding our ringworm program and hoping to get some more volunteers helping us. So I'm going to present kind of the technical portion of it and give you a little bit more information about what ringworm is. And then Meg is going to talk a little bit more about our new program that we're doing. So our expansion on the program started, I went to what's called an apprenticeship last year. It was a 3-day presentation down at San Francisco SPCA, learning a little bit about their ringworm program. Their program is actually about 90% volunteer, and they run a lot of animals through that place, both dogs and cats. So it's a really interesting program, and learned some great things, and we're doing a lot right, and I just want to expand what we're doing right now. So that's where we're going with this. So we're going with, what is ringworm? So it was ringworm was first identified, a little history lesson, first identified in the 1800s, and they did originally think it was caused by a worm, which is why they named it ringworm. But it's actually a fungus. It's the scientific name is called dermatophytosis, and we have up here, we have a picture at the top, which I don't think I have a pointer in here. We were trying to figure that out earlier, but no. So picture at the top is the actual microscopic look of what it looks like. And then down below is a cat. You can see the red lesion on the cat. That's what ringworm looks like on the kitties that we bring here. So the hair loss, scaling, a little bit itchiness. A lot of times the hairs pull out really easily around that area. Those are all symptoms of ringworm that we'll see here in our cats. So it lives on the hair follicle. On humans, it lives more in the keratin layers of the skin, since we don't have the fur like the cats and dogs do. It produces spores, kind of like a dandelion, and we see it a lot from some of the transports that we get from more of the southern states or from Hawaii, those areas, because it's a warm, damp type of fungus, although we do have it up here too. So it can be just about anywhere. It's one of the few funguses we actually get in Oregon. Some more of the southern states will get a lot of different funguses, and we get mainly ringworm. And it is, because of the spores, it's able to stay in the environment for a long period of time, which makes it a little bit trickier, only because it's a little harder to get rid of once it's in your environment. It just takes some cleanup. So it is contagious to people as well as other animals. So it's not just cats. We can get this in rabbits. We can get it in mice. We can get it in humans. It can be just about any animal out there. You can see what it looks like in the human, kind of that red. Ooh, I can do this. So that red, that red area, and it will sometimes look like a ring. A lot of times in humans, it's more common to get it in some of the more warm areas, so like the folds of your skin. The one time I had it when I was in middle school, it was right here in my inside elbow area. So it's more of a warm fold area that ringworm goes to. It is very closely related to the same thing that causes athlete's foot. So it's the same type of fungus. And like we talked about before, it does produce spores. So it can go into the air and infect other people potentially, or animals. So how we protect ourselves and how we protect our cats from getting it is we have an isolation area. And if any of you have been back into kitten headquarters, you've seen this mysterious door back there with all these things on it, and all the special clothing that's sitting outside of it. And that's our ringworm isolation area. And the reason we do all of that stuff, and we're going to show you in a little bit how we get dressed up to go into that room and just it's to protect ourselves. It's to keep the spores off of our clothing so that we don't go to other areas in the shelter and spread it. That's the main reason. It's not because it's so scary. It's just we're trying to protect us from getting it, but also protecting other cats from getting it. You can just as easily, if you've handled a cat or a human or a rat or whatever with ringworm, wash your hands really well. You know, I mean, it just is a matter of getting it off of you, getting the spores off of you to keep it from infecting. This is something that infects more the young, the old, that type of thing. So kittens are going to be more likely to have it than adult cats. Once you've had it once, I don't know of a lot of people that get it again. So it's, you know, it's one of those things where it's, you know, if you've had it, it's usually one little isolated area. You get some over-the-counter medication, and it's really easy to clear up. Other things that we do to make sure that we're protecting the other cats in the shelter is we're just aware of what we're doing. We're making sure we're washing after we come out of there, and we have an actual visiting order in the ringworm room. So we have cats that are least infected to most infected. Ones that first go in there are going to be on the bottom of the list. That's the last ones we want to visit when we're in that room. The ones that are almost out because they've gone through a lot of treatment and we've been testing them, those ones are going to be our first ones to clean because we don't want to get them reinfected. So this is called the ringworm isolation. To the right of this door, over on this side, is our new little room called KHQ5, and that's our flex room. Last year we did use that quite a bit for ringworm as well, so it's a room that we can turn into a ringworm ward if we get a lot of cats. So personal protective equipment. Meg is going to show us how to put on personal protective equipment here. So this is what we do in the shelter environment, is we have a hairnet on.
Long sleeve scrub top here.
Yeah, she's going to protect her arms with a long sleeve scrub top.
It is a very fashionable statement.
It is. It's only the elite that get to go in this room and dress up like this.
Awesome.
We should have parties like this. We really should.
Oh, I know. Got to put extra pants on. Of course, extra pants to cover my own pants.
So it's helpful when you're going to do this to wear leggings.
Yeah.
Leggings, skinny jeans.
Something like that. Most of the things that we have back there are extra large, and the purpose is just so it can go over a lot of bulky clothing.
And of course, drawstrings are always the best. And I gotta get my boot covers on. I know this is great. You guys can have an opportunity to wear this as well. Got shoe covers.
So shoe covers to keep her from picking up spores and spreading them throughout the shelter. And then when she leaves, she's going to dress up like this before she goes in the isolation area. And then before she leaves, she will systematically take all of that off. So she will remove the gloves, take off the outerwear, put it in a special bin that's inside the ringworm ward. The last thing she's going to do is hold carefully on the door frame, take off one shoe cover, step out of the ringworm area, and then take off the other shoe cover, throw them out in the bin, step out, and then close the door. So a little bit of a balancing act, but we're just trying to prevent any of the spores from getting out in the shelter. So, doesn't she look good?
Sometimes it's intimidating for people, so I'm actually going to keep wearing this.
All right.
Right, hazmat on.
So, how do we protect ourselves and other cats? So we've shown our wonderful outfit that we have, but within the ringworm ward itself, we do daily spot cleanings just like we're doing throughout the rest of the shelter. So we're not doing anything overly special in this ringworm ward. We want these cats to feel safe and secure with their own smells and things like that. But we want to keep the infection rate down too. So we're doing just daily spot cleanings in their kennels, but once a week we'll do a really big deep cleaning, and we'll take out all of their bedding, wipe everything down. One of the reasons we use rescue is because it does kill ringworm spores. It does have to have a certain amount of time damp on surfaces to make sure that it kills those ringworm spores, but it will kill them. Other thing that kills it is Clorox bleach. You just have to have a fresh solution. It has to have a 10-minute contact time, and it will kill ringworm spores. So there's a lot of things out there that do kill ringworm. It just has to be cleaned properly. And then we just make sure we wash up after we're done wash our arms and like, and sometimes I'll even go on the ringworm ward and all I put on are the shoe covers. I'm just going in there to get something. I'll come back out. I'll just make sure I wash my hands really well. I'm not touching any cats, and I'll just go in really quickly. So it's really not as scary as you think it is. Not that you thought it was scary. All right, so this is our main way of diagnosing ringworm. You may have heard us talk about woods lamp. You want to show them what the woods lamp looks like?
Yes.
So we have these throughout the shelter. And this is our screening method for looking at all cats that come into the shelter. It's one of our first intake exam things that we do to all the cats. And the reason behind it is that the most common ringworm species that we see is Microsporum canis. It's the most common animal form that we have. And about 70 to 80% of those will fluoresce. So with the black light, you'll actually see this, what we call is, it kind of looks bluish here, but it's an apple green color is what these shine as. Right here, here, it's all the way up in this cat's ear. And this is what it looks like before we shine anything on it. So it's that apple green color. Sometimes they won't fluoresce. There are some species that don't fluoresce, like the trichophyton species don't fluoresce at all. So we're not going to see that, but if we have some suspicions, we'll go ahead and test for it anyway. So there's other tests that we can do. But this is our best screening tool because this is the most common species of ringworm, and most of them fluoresce. So we'll see this apple green color.
What are some other tests that you use?
We're going to go over. Oh, good segue, though. Love it. So this is another test that we'll do. This is called the PCR test, the polymerase chain reaction test. This is a test that we do through our lab. So we have to send this into a central lab to get this test done. What we end up doing is taking a few hairs from the cat, and we usually keep them somewhere isolated while we're waiting for this test. If we are that suspecting ringworm, we're going to keep them isolated thinking it might be ringworm. And then we're going to send this test in. The reason we don't do this on every cat that we're suspecting ringworm is it's expensive. And it tells us that they've had ringworm or they have ringworm, but it doesn't tell us they're cured from ringworm. So even if they had ringworm 4 weeks ago, but it's all better now and it's actually not spreading spores and things like that, it will still come up positive. So it's not a great test it's a great test if we're just suspicious and we're a little concerned about this spot that doesn't seem to be glowing well. And we've got some hair loss and we've had issues with this, maybe some of these cats from the rescue or shelter before. So we'll take some of these hairs because it only takes about 3 days for us to get results. So it's fairly quick compared to our other gold standard tests that we do. So this is one form of testing that we can do. But this is our best test. This is the fungal culture. So these are DTM plates that Meg's going to just hand out so you guys can take a look at them. So this is an actual culture plate. And what we're doing is we're taking a toothbrush and brushing these cats to get hairs out of them, putting those hairs into the culture plate, and we have to put this in a warm place. We're checking it daily. It takes 2 weeks for us to actually have a positive or negative result. So that's why this is the gold standard. If they have ringworm, this is how we're going to be able to tell. But unfortunately, it takes 2 weeks for that to occur. So in the meantime, we need to know what to do with that cat. So it's something that once we're pretty darn sure we've got ringworm, or we're monitoring the progress of that ringworm, monitoring the treatment to see if they're over the ringworm, this is what we're doing. Every week we're taking these cultures on the cat, and we're looking at them. If it's the first culture, we're looking at them on a daily basis. If it's the second, third, fourth, and fifth culture, we're looking at them on a weekly basis to just monitor the progress of our treatment. So this is what I was just talking about with the toothbrush, and you may have seen sometimes we have on our wish list that we want toothbrushes. It's kind of a weird request, but this is what. We do brush some cats' teeth, but this is more likely what we're doing is we're taking the toothbrush to do our fungal cultures. So with the toothbrush, we brush that cat all over 15 times, because even if you don't see a ringworm lesion on them or a hair loss region, doesn't mean that they don't have ringworm somewhere else on them. So we're brushing them 15 times, and then the area that we're suspecting or the area that we've seen fluorescing, we're doing another 5 times. And then we're opening that plate and tapping those bristles to get that hair embedded in that material. This yellow material that's on there is basically food for the fungus. It helps them grow. They grow off of that material, and that's how we can identify them. Yeah. So this is Microsporum canis. So that's the growth of what we see most commonly, the most common type of ringworm that we see. It's kind of this fuzzy, little bit gooey looking white growth. But we don't just identify it from looking at it. Most of the time, we've gotten pretty good that we know this pretty much looks like ringworm. We're pretty sure of that. But what we do more than that is we take a piece of tape, we're getting some of those spores off there, putting it on a microscope slide and staining it. And that's what we get in that middle view is what we look at under the microscope. And these are called, the little boat-shaped things are called macroconidia. And that's what we're looking for. That's the diagnosis of ringworm, this particular ringworm. And sometimes we'll get, there it is. Sometimes we'll get this, which is just contaminations. We do get other things that grow in there sometimes too. And that's why we have to make sure we examine it under the microscope and we're actually identifying that this is for sure ringworm. And then we get happy kitties when we treat. So we have, our treatments include an oral medication that we're giving, topical medications, which is the lime sulfur dip. If you've ever been here, usually it's Wednesdays and either Saturday or Sunday that we're dipping. And you may smell that really strong sulfury smell, especially in the back area. That's the lime sulfur dip. And so that's what we're doing is we're actually spraying these kitties down. And we'll show you a video of it in a little bit with this lime sulfur material to get rid of the ringworm. That's the best method. And it's actually the method that was used even back in the 1800s is a similar type of lime sulfur material to cure this. But we also have oral medications that we give. Now, if humans get this, a lot of times it's just a topical medication that you use, like Lamisil. So something you can buy over the counter for athlete's foot is what you use because it's often just one little lesion and you know, it's not something that's all over your body where you need to take an oral medication. But on cats, this goes everywhere and we can't always see exactly where all the spots are. So in order to make sure we're completely done with the ringworm, we really need to do the oral medication as well. So the ringworm, we do these treatments until we get 2 consecutive cultures, those culture plates that you were seeing, 2 of them that are negative. So 2 of them without growth on them. And that's considered a negative and that's considered cure in these cases. Usually that's about 4 weeks for these kitties, 4 to 5 weeks. Yeah, 4 to 5 weeks, yeah, okay. And we also are looking at them with the Woods lamp and making sure that we don't see any more infected hairs on them, so those glowing hairs. These are our 2 treatments that we use. Often we're using the one on the right, the terbinafine tablets. It's inexpensive, it's easy to give, but it is given on a daily basis for these kitties. We're starting to use a little bit more of itrafungal. Couple reasons why, well, it is a little more expensive than the terbinafine, unfortunately. We'd love to use this for all the kitties. It's easy, it's a liquid medication. It's the only medication that's on the market that's actually specifically for cats for ringworm. The terbinafine is a human medication that we're using off-label for ringworm. But we use a lot of medications off-label. Not a lot of medications are specifically designed for certain things in cats. So the itrafungal is really nice because it's liquid, because it's easy to give. It's given on a week-on, week-off basis. So one week you'll give it, next week you don't. One week you give it, next week you don't. So it's really easy to use. And we tend to use that more if we're going to be sending these cats to a foster home because it's easier for fosters to give than the pills. And it's convenient because it's week on, week off, like that. And then this is our lime sulfur dip. So this is the stinky stuff that we mix up with warm water and spray the kitties down with. Kills spores on contact. It kills spores for about 3 to 4 days. So it has a nice residual effect. So it's actually decreasing the environmental contamination at the same time. So even when these kitties are losing hairs, as long as they've had that lime sulfur dip, it's really not going to be as big of an issue to have those hairs in the environment. So, and it's stinky. We talked about the stinkiness. So even when we have babies, oops, wait, is there one? I can go back. Even when we have little babies, lime sulfur is safe for them. The oral medications aren't safe until they're at least 2 pounds. So, but the lime sulfur dip, it's safe for anybody as long as we keep them warm afterwards. Okay, and then once I turn it, do we have sound to that?
No, if you want to talk through it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so here is Meg doing one of the dips. So you can see how easy it is. We have these pump sprayers, and we've pre-mixed the solution with warm water, and then we are just spraying the kitty down, making sure we get them all over. It's just a warm mist that goes on them. They're usually pretty good about the whole thing, especially the kittens. We try to get it fairly close to their fur, so it's not a lot of overspray, but also it's not as scary for them. Yeah.
So why are you guys spraying versus actually dipping them? Like I've seen other places dip the cat. Is there a benefit to doing the spray versus the dip?
It's less cold for them to get completely soaked through with it, and it's not necessary to dip them completely. It also uses less solution this way too.
It looks like marble.
It is marble.
It is marble.
This is one of our wonderful ringworm dogs.
Yes, Jamie and her kittens were our prodigy film children.
Okay, so
He's such a good boy.
You
He
can see
wasn't that good after that, though.
I'm getting every nook and cranny of that cat sprayed.
It's like a massage.
It is kind of like a massage. You can do it, and then here's us we use sponges when we get close to the eyes. A lot of times the ringworm fungus is in the ears, like we showed you earlier, or around the eyes, around the mouth. So you need to make sure that you get a really good dipping around that mouth, the ears, eyes area. We used to use rags, but the property of a towel is it's to soak up liquid. So it actually didn't do a really good job of getting the hairs wet. So these sponges work much better because you can kind of squeeze them a little bit, get some of the dip out and wipe it around. If it does get in the eyes, it's really as simple as just rinse it out. It's not that big of a deal. It'll be a little bit irritated, but just as long as you rinse it out, it's fine.
Gosh, he's being so good. What happens when you don't have them?
We have some that
Aren't that
and
good?
when they get older, they're not as easy, but
Yeah.
you,
Well, when I did it last summer, I was doing a different method, and they were
easier
having to
method.
get completely wet, and that was not fun.
Yeah, and then you take them and you just give them a big hug afterwards.
yeah.
Yeah, you give them a big towel hug. So it's really not too hard. We used to always do it in a sink too, and this material would go down the drain, which isn't particularly great for your drain. So now we're just doing it on towels. It makes it a little bit easier. We can do this anywhere. When I learned this down in San Francisco SPCA, this method, we actually did this in a lunchroom. And we put towels out on tables, and that's where we did this. So it's an easy thing to do just about anywhere, and then you can throw the towel in the wash and just get it clean. Okay, now Meg's going to go over some of the volunteer opportunities.
Yes, so now I get to talk about how you guys can get up in this fancy gear. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for that lovely overview. We can give her a round of applause. Thank you very much. As you can see quickly in the video, I am wearing a different top. We do have old surgery gowns that you can also wear if a gown is something you want to wear in ringworm isolation, or you can just wear the long sleeve scrub top. We have a variety of options. And let's start. So, how can I get you guys to help us out and to help these lovely cats? Well, we have a grand 4 opportunities to help out. We have our fantastic opportunity of being hands-on. If you're someone who really just wants to be with the cats and working with the cats, we have a great hands-on opportunity. We also have another opportunity that's very detail-orientated. So something like kind of disease control and really hard cleaning and making sure everything is nice and sanitized for the kitties to return. We also have our other opportunity of basically increasing their adoptability when they are removed from isolation. As the word implies, isolation. They're pretty much in there by themselves. And with cats being social creatures, we want them to be interacted with. We want them to be playful. And then finally, we have our fantastic opportunity to bring these cats home to you. All right, which is fantastic because you're opening up our resources at our shelters that we're able to help more kitties coming through. I do see some very familiar faces. Some of you guys are dipping, some of you are foster volunteers, some of you are cleaning volunteers. I thank you all. The work you've done is fantastic, and for you guys that are interested, it's gonna be great. Okay. All right, so first up, we have our very hands-on. So this position is gonna be very much for cat handling skills. You will be dipping the cat, so like we saw in the video, you have to feel comfortable holding the cat while you're getting it wet, as well as making sure, it's not jumping or freaking out or anything. So you have to have good, strong handling skills. If this is something that you guys are interested in, but feel like you need some better refinement on your handling skills, we can work with you, I can work with you, we can get this figured out, okay? As you can see, there are 2 opportunities. They vary, those 2 days vary. On the deep clean day, those are our Wednesdays. They're gonna be our more thorough day. So like Dr. Brown said, you are actually gonna be doing wood lamp exams. We'll be weighing those cats, and we'll be doing the rest of the treatments, which are fantastic for them. For our Saturday or Sunday, one of those weekend days, whatever you can do. The dipping is just gonna be a dip, and you're just going to come on in. It might be 30 minutes, it might be 2 hours. The time depends on how many cats we actually have in the isolation that you have to get through. But we're just dipping and loving on them. Of course, either of these opportunities have very flexible commitments. You can either commit to do it on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis. Just kind of be in communication with me about what fits your schedule. Ready? And this is great. You get a couple cats. All right. Yes. This is well. All right. So in this position, we have a very detail orientated. You are focusing a lot on disease control. If you have an interest or if you've done a past caregiving shift, this is another good example of how important cleaning and making sure those spores are down. As you can see with the cat photo, you're not cleaning toilets. Don't worry. We'd be having a group of volunteers that would be going in, and they would be wiping the counters, wiping the walls. They would be removing everything from the kennels, turning the kennel, so sanitizing it, and then putting in new bedding, and then replacing the cat once dipping is done. And then finally, that person in Ringworm would also sanitize the floor. For both of these cleaning days, and for dipping as well, you get to wear the get up. So you guys want to go to the Met Gala in this? It's fantastic. All right, so that's the first group of volunteers. We also are looking for another volunteer who would be coming in later. If it's something that the 10 a.m. time on Wednesdays doesn't work for you, but you can maybe come in a little bit later and help. We're also looking for someone there. This person that would be coming in later is kind of like the outside help. So because we have to gear up in all of our gear here to enter Ringworm, to exit Ringworm, we have to remove all of this. And then to enter back into Ringworm, we have to put it all back on. As you can probably think, that's a very lengthy process. So we're looking for someone who's just willing to hang out outside of Ringworm isolation door that you saw and kind of just help grab things or hand things in if they need, as well as when dipping is done, you're going to go in and deep clean the exam room that dipping is happening in. So it's very kind of detail oriented, really scrubbing and just cleaning everything and getting it all better. Once again, we do have flexibilities here. You can do a weekly or bi-weekly commitment. This would be occurring in conjunction with dipping, so you're not really interacting with the cats very much, which is kind of a downfall, but it's fantastic because you know they're going to go back to a sparkling new kennel, and they're not going to have any of those spores that have been accumulating for the past week. They're going nice and pretty and clean. Okay. All right. So our third opportunity, this one is very important for any type of animal in isolation. We want to increase their adoptability when they are graduated and when they are cleared. If I can give you guys a moment and paint a picture of the day in the life of a ringworm kitten in our isolation. In the mornings, we have a staff member who goes in and feeds them, caregives, wipes out their kennel if they've made a mess, gives them a new litter box, kind of interacts with them a little bit. Then about midday, we have another staff person that goes in and medicates, gives them a pill or liquid, or gives them a dip, if need be. And then finally, at the end of their day, they have an evening caregiver that goes back through, same thing that they did in the morning, feeds, caregives, and that's it. So they're only getting 3 interactions through the whole day. And those interactions, although we're trying our best as staff members to interact with them and pet them and talk to them and love them, it gets difficult because we have other responsibilities we need to get done during our shift. So with this socialization, we're asking for you to enter, or lovely get up, and just hang out with them and talk with them and try to keep that positive interaction with them so that they're not feeling depressed or they're not feeling too scared of humans that they don't want to interact with anyone once they're graduated because they just think that you're going to dip them. So this is a really good position for some of you guys that just want to give some love to them. I know there's a few volunteers that do this for the socialization, and it's fantastic. Because when you enter that room and you see that little scared kitten in the corner, and you're just talking to them sweetly and nicely, and they just start opening up and blossoming, it's like, oh, you're making an impact on that kitten's life. And you're going to increase his adoptability when he gets out. Of course, we have a radio in there and we have a TV in there, so you can watch Disney movies if you want, or you can have a radio show for them. We do have a laser light in there, so you can have a laser party. And we do have a few ringworm specific wand toys in there as well. So if you're wanting to play with them, but you don't necessarily want to touch them or you're kind of a little hesitant on that, we have other things that you can do. A lot of the times, these cats just need someone nice talking to them and not trying to force a pill down their throat or something like that. They just need some love, which we give them love too, but it needs more.
For a specific situation, do you need to have a weekly commitment? I come in like on Fridays and do caregiving upstairs. And sometimes I need to leave right after caregiving. Sometimes I have extra time. So I wanted to be trained on socialization, but didn't want to commit to a weekly basis. That's something that would be available.
Yes, that's a great segue for something I was about to mention before I flipped over. So the socialization, I believe, is probably the most flexible position we have. So if it's something that once you get trained and we go through, this is how you do it. And if it's a day like you said, Friday I caregive, I can't do it this Friday, but I can do it next Friday or next Friday, next Tuesday, let me know. Our times available are pretty broad. We ask that it's between the hours of 11 a.m. and 4. And on any day that either dipping or cleaning is not happening at the same time. So like those deep clean days on Wednesdays would not be a good idea to go in and try to socialize the kittens while they're getting dipped. So we have that opportunity. Generally, we try to ask for a time commitment of maybe 30 minutes to 90 minutes. A time, but of course, if your schedule allows it, you can go in for longer. Whatever you can give to these cats they're gonna love it. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Perfect, yeah, so this is the most flexible. If this is something that interests you, let me know, and you can even do it once a week or 3 times a week or
Once a month if you want. Yeah. However much.
Yeah, however many times you want to go in, you can do it. You also probably will see some staff members. If we have free time, we'll go in and do it as well. We're really just trying to give them more interactions than just those solid 3 that they get.
I'll say too, you are welcome to pick up the kittens and cuddle them too. We just ask if you are going to pick them up and hold them and play with them, is that you change your top before you go to the next one. just so you're not, if that one's, and you follow the order that's in there. So if you're gonna pick one up, go with the least infected first, down to the most infected, and we'll always have an order. It's on the outside of the door?
Inside.
Outside?
And that would go over in training as well.
Yeah, so we would do that in training, but yeah, you're more than welcome to pick them up and hold them.
Oh yeah, no, there's currently a kitten in there. She's already adopted. Her name is Lacey. And she's just a sweet lover bug. She comes up right here and she just wants to snuggle up on your shoulder. So she is just a lover. We have a few of those kittens that really just want that interaction. Okay, and then lastly, our final position we have, the fabulous one. Get these guys with you guys. Yeah. So this one has a very varied commitment. Our plan is to have our first negative cats. So cats that have had a few weeks of treatments, they've had some pills, they've had some dips, and they've just gotten their first negative culture. So we're still waiting for that second negative culture to come up. Like Dr. Brown said, that's how they're cured. Or that's when they get released, is when they have the 2 negative cultures and the negative blood slant. So we're gonna ask that the first negative cats would go to foster, kind of be able to adapt to a home life a little bit. While they're being foster with you guys, the shelter would send home everything with you that's needed, food, water, get up. We would be still having to do oral medications and weekly dips for those cats. That kind of brings me into what a good ringworm foster safe room would be. Ideally, we would love to have these guys in spare bathrooms because of that kind of hardwood floor or laminate floor. It's any room that you think that would be easily cleanable. I like to put it as any room that you're okay with getting bleach on things. So I would not put this in my bedroom, or I would not put this in my fancy guest room with fancy linens. Bathrooms are fantastic, and you can also use the bathtubs to do your dips as well. And that kind of helps just keep everything in an area that you can easily clean. Marcy's nodding her head. I feel like she has some experience with this. All right, so with the first negative cats, like I said, we're only waiting for them to get their second negative culture. So you would maybe only hold on to them for maybe 1 to 2 weeks, just until they get that negative culture, that second negative culture back in, and then they'd be able to come back to the shelter and go out to the adoption floor. Sometimes, though, we have too many cats in our ringworm isolation. So if it's something that you feel that you would like to take a group of cats home with you on a singleton or litter and start on day 1 of the treatment plan and work all the way down, that's looking at like your 8-week commitment. As Dr. Brown said, DTM plate takes about 2 weeks to run. So it could be a little bit longer than 8 weeks, but we're looking at least 8 weeks. With the cats that are just starting their treatment on day 1 with you, you would bring them in. We would give you all of the gear that you need to have. You would be doing your oral medications. That's where we use the liquid, the itraconazole or the intrafungal. Oral medications once a day, as well as your biweekly dips twice a week. And you would just be hanging out with them. And you'd have to go in, dress up in our gear, but go in, interact with them, care give, clean, deep clean once a week as well. For this good foster opportunity, we ask that you guys are flexible enough to be able to visit the shelter at least once a week for Woods Lab examinations or culture plates, to make the culture plates. If you're like, I can only make it to the shelter every 2 weeks for Woods Lab, we can work on training opportunities for you guys to make culture plates at your house and at home, and for you to bring it in when you're able. But it's just kind of getting the cats out of the shelter, getting the cats out of this isolation ward, opening up those kennels for other cats to come in. A lot of the times, other shelters don't have the resources to even care for ringworm cats, but luckily at Cat Adoption Team, we do. So we're trying to keep them all here and trying to keep them all getting better. So you might be thinking to yourself now, I want to do this. I'm interested. I want some more information. Who do I talk to? Feel free to email me. Shoot me an email if you'd like. My email address is up there. If you're interested in any of those 4 opportunities I said, I can give you guys an idea of training schedules. We can set something up. If it's something like you really just want to kind of test the waters and try something out, come and talk to me. We can figure this out. Dr. Brown's also really good at answering questions for foster families. I'm also available to help out with some kind of the Ringworm foster questions if need be. And of course, Mary is fantastic at trying to answer it, and Hannah as well. She knows a lot about Ringworm questions. So we're here to help. You guys are welcome to talk to me after the presentation if you're interested, or just shoot me that email. Before I flick over to the next slide, I do have some items here that I'll probably hand these out to you guys. If there's 3 copies of them. But these are just some items that you would probably see if you were in our working with them. So I have our Woodsend examination chart, which the treatment volunteer would be doing that, as well as job descriptions for each item. If you want to check out the job descriptions, feel free to take one if you would like. There's 3 copies. If it's something like, oh, I don't want to take them, I can also send it to you on email. Okay, and you guys can feel free to read through if you like. If you have any kind of inquiries, let us know, because you guys have any questions? Yes.
When you do the laundry of your little get-ups and the towels and everything, do you launder and rescue, or do you just use
Bleach.
launder?
Hot water and bleach.
Yeah, we do use hot water and bleach. It's actually been proven, though, it's the length of the washing cycle, not necessarily the hot water or bleach that actually kills the spores. So you can wash in perfectly cold water if you did an hour-long wash. So it's the length of that washing cycle that kills it, and it's not that hard to kill.
A lot of bleach.
Yeah.
So what, like if you have a washing machine that senses the size of the load, how do you know how much bleach to use in the bleach dispenser?
I wouldn't say we use a 4th cup of bleach.
Yeah.
Our protocol in the hospital is we wash the cycle twice on a hot cycle, and we use a 1/4 cup bleach, 1/4 cup detergent, because that's what our machine calls for.
Thank you.
And the only reason we do it for twice is just for the length of time, to make sure it's
Yeah,
a long
to-
enough cycle.
You guys have any other questions? Yes.
I just am curious, so the only place on your body that's exposed is your neck and your face.
Basically.
Have you had any problems with going home and ending up getting it there?
No, I haven't gotten it in all the cats that I've dealt with here, and a lot of times we're dealing with as they come in, and we don't know they have ringworm yet until we start examining them. And we're like, oh yeah, there's a little lesion there. Okay, stop everything. Let's get the wood slam and take a look at it. I was like, oh, okay, wash. Now, you know. So no, I've never gotten it since I've been here.
Since I've been here, I've never gotten it. I got it through middle school,
Yeah, that's what
and that's like,
So it's just a matter of making sure you watch. Again, it's more of a young or old, so immunocompromised older person. If you have someone you're taking care of in the home, I probably would not bring home a ringworm or a cat. More likely to get the disease. Or really young kids, if they're handling it, just make sure you're using really good hygiene. That they're washing their hands afterwards. Probably have a long sleeve jacket on, or some sort of cover on to protect their arms. And don't do this with the kid.
Yeah, we want you to love them, but don't
rub them on your face.
rub them.
We spend a lot of time with our ringworm. We had a mom and 4 kittens. We had them for 8 weeks.
Probably close to 8 weeks now, maybe.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
And we'll sit on the floor with them for, like last night I was in there for like 2 hours, sitting on the floor, letting them run all over me and everything. And if we're spending a lot of time like that with them, then I just take a shower right after. My 8-year-old son got it, and he was in there once. And that was probably just because his skin, that some kids are more susceptible or something. And it was gone within like 3 weeks or something. We have little stuff, and he never went back in just because I think he might be susceptible. But my daughter and I are in there hours, and nothing. And I don't have a hairnet or my face covered. If I'm going to be there for a long time, I take a shower after. If we're just going to feed them, I just make sure I'm washing up. And if I feel like you know, they got near my face or something, I washed my face or something, so.
Did I understand correctly that once you've had it, you don't get it again?
I can't say that 100%. If you're really susceptible to it, some people will get it multiple times, but most of the people I've known have gotten it once and have never gotten it again.
Well, I got it when I cleaned the Clackamas PetSmart Dam,
Mhm.
because we had an outbreak out there, and
Oh, really?
I spent 3 days cleaning in there.
Uh-huh.
That's how I got
And
it.
then you got it. Yeah.
And so I was just, since I've had it,
Yeah.
am I basically safe and not going to get it
I
again?
can't guarantee that. Talk to your physician because maybe you have more susceptibility. I don't know, but most people I've known have gotten it once in their life and have never gotten it again.
Good to know.
And I mean, you've also had the experience of having it, so for me, it's ringworm. I felt like was more annoying than like deadly.
Yeah, I just had the one spot, and I got the Lamisone, and it cleaned up in about 2 weeks, 10 days, 2 weeks, and that was it.
Is it
No one
itchy?
else wanted to
It
go.
is
and
itchy.
clean
It is itchy. That's where it's like it's more annoying. So when I had it in middle school, I actually just had a Band-Aid over my lesion all the time because I was just like gonna scratch it constantly. But for me, it was just the Lamisil or Lotrimin and just once a day, plop it on.
Do the schools have an issue with it if they know that the kid has ringworm?
Yeah, you have to cover it and you have to have it treated for certain number of days.
Yes, I got it in my middle school yoga studio because of the yoga mats.
Yeah.
But don't deter you guys from going to yoga studio.
Take your own mat.
Yeah. Take your own mat. There you go. Yes.
So since the spores are airborne, does like a HEPA air purifier help cut down on the transmission?
I would imagine it would. The main thing is that's why we're wiping down all the surfaces once a week, is just if there is anything that was flying around in the room, we're making sure we're getting the spores off. But I would imagine it would probably cut down on some things, yeah.
A lot of dust.
I
Any
have a
other- oh,
question.
Natalie.
I have a question about, we've only had a couple, at least since I started volunteering here, but ringworm carrier cats. So is it like people that are strep carriers where it doesn't mean they have the disease all the time, but it means that if they have it, they're asymptomatic? Is that what that is?
Yeah, and Persians are the really big ones. So if we've had a couple Persians through here that have had ringworm, and then I won't let them go with any other cats, just because at least in the shelter they can't go into a communal room because they are known to be carriers. So even when they don't have any lesions, they are carriers of the ringworm. And for some reason, Persians, that's the only one I've ever kept from being with other cats is Persians.
And is that what you would suggest if they were going to be adopted, that they should be only pets, or is it something where if they're indoor only and
I let people know. We've sent them home with literature just saying, this cat's been exposed to ringworm. They have this breed is known to be carriers, and so I'd be more cautious with it, just so that they have that information.
Thanks.
You guys have any other questions? Yes.
I just have one. So periodically, upstairs on the adult cats, we'll see some spots with no hair, but it's not red. And I mean, the ones that I've seen typically they're like right where you'd be putting Revolution or that type of thing. But is the ringworm always going to be a reddish color in that hair spot?
It's usually scaly, not necessarily red, but a little bit more scaly. Sometimes it's red. A lot of times the hairs are falling out. It's not usually well defined. It's usually, patchy. But we'll have it all throughout the ear and we didn't even know it was there. We'll just start shining and it'll be like, there's like whirly hairs everywhere all over their ears. So it's not necessarily, a lot of times they will have some scaling material and it'll just be really crusty. I wouldn't say red. I mean, some of them are red. The cat we showed up there is more red than a lot of them that I see, but that's mainly from scratching more than the ringworm itself.
Does food allergies present the same way sometimes?
Not as much scaly as just the more like what you saw there, the bloody, kind of hair loss areas because they itch a lot with it.
Yeah, dermatology is fascinating.
Yeah.
So many things can be wrong. All right, you guys have any other questions, or have I sparked some interest in you? Because these cats are fantastic.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
We did have people come, that were willing to come and get the whole getup, to come and pre-adopt, to come and meet the kitties, so I didn't have, there was not one person, I let them all know, and not one person balked at that. They all were willing, and then I said, go home and take a shower, just in case. And they're all pre-adopted this week.
That's great.
Yeah.
And this was, the purpose of this was not just to recruit you as volunteers, but to give you information. So I hope you got a little bit more information about it. It tends to be one of those words, because of the word ringing, or because of the word worm in it, it scares people. And I just wanted people to be a little bit more comfortable with what it is. It's really not that big a deal. And I will explain it to people, it's like athlete's foot, because it is the same fungus. So, and that usually calms people down. Oh, well, athlete's foot, so it's not as big of a deal. But that's mainly what I wanted to get out of this. But if you do have some, some thoughts about volunteering, that's great. We would love to expand our abilities to take more of these cats, but we can't. We have a limited amount of space in our ringworm isolation. So we need to either process them faster, so get them out faster. And that's why we're trying to up our protocols a little bit, or get them out to home so we can bring more in. So.
And just also keeping everything transparent, because I know I've had a few of you volunteers like, what is behind this ringworm isolation door? So just trying to keep things more transparent of, yes, we do have this isolation ward. Yes, we do have these precautions that we follow because we do not want to infect the other cats upstairs. But it's also not like a looming, ooh. Yeah. It's not scary or anything. It's
And
just,
we're hoping eventually, if we get into the busy season, we may be adopting out some of these kitties too. People are so interested in having kittens. If we're out of kittens in here and they really, really want a kitten, if an adopter is willing to dress up and go on the ringworm and take a look at them, we're more than willing for them to adopt them. Those are possibilities too that we want to expand our program into.
yeah. And coming with at least the dipping, the kittens I have found are a lot easier to dip because they're kind of just kittens. They're go lucky, like, oh, what are you doing? You're petting me. Adults can be a little bit harder, but it's really just getting them accustomed and getting them comfortable. Everything. But yeah, so okay, cool. There you go.
Thank you.